Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com, and welcome to episode 15 of my video train blog series. It's late November 2011, and it's a couple days before Thanksgiving, so before we all take off for the holidays, I wanted to give you an update and let you know how the open house went last month, and also show you some of the latest work on the layout. The open house for my layout, which was part of the Piedmont Pilgrimage Tour of Layouts, was on October 29th, and I had about 130 people come out this year, so that was a good showing. Everybody seemed to really enjoy themselves. I got to see a lot of friends and meet a lot of people that I've never met before in person, so it was a whole lot of fun. I also had a chance to give away a lot of trains to kids. Legacy Station, one of the train stores here in town, donated about 9 or 10 K-Line cars. Weaver Models donated a few cars, and Atlas O donated a trolley set. So for the individual cars, I gave those out to kids during the day, and then for the trolley set, we had a drawing, and it ended up being a 12-year-old boy a few hours south of here that won that trolley set. So that was a lot of fun as well. Now, during the open house, we ran the trains for 5 or 6 hours, and by and large, they ran pretty well. We had a few derailments here and there, but no major problems, and things ran pretty smoothly. The surprise performer of the day was the Kcs Switcher that I had on the top level here. As I've said in the previous video, I was running that Kcs Switcher using the Legacy record function because I don't have a complete loop on the top level, so I just had it run back and forth all day on a loop that I recorded in the Legacy remote. And once we got it started and going right, it ran perfectly the entire day, didn't give us any more problems, so that was great. It was fun to watch that thing just go back and forth all day. Had a few problems on the levels down below, but that one up there just kept on chugging all day long, and that was great to see. So now that that open house is behind me, it's time to start working towards next year's open house. And so I've started up work on the layout again, and I'm going to try to get it as far as I can before people start showing up for next year's open house. So on that note, let me show you what I've been up to for the last few weeks. Here in the main room, the only work I've done over the last few weeks is here on the northwest corner of the layout. All of this hard shell over here is new. I just did that in the last couple weeks, and over the next days or weeks, I will put some rocks up and start doing some scenic work. Now, to the immediate right of the hard shell there's going to be a street eventually that'll kind of disappear into the hills of the backdrop, because in the future there's going to be buildings up here, and so I'm starting to plan where the streets are going to be, and one street's going to run right there, kind of disappearing off into the distance, and then about 10 inches after that the hard shell will resume, and you'll get another set of hills and mountains over there in the corner. Most of the work over the last few weeks has been here at the end of the hallway room, into part of the Colorado room, and into the Carolina room. Over in the Colorado room, you can see I've started to do some ground cover work here. Not a whole lot, but it's starting to look pretty good there. I've also added a little bit to the stone wall back there. So this is starting to look pretty good. The grass and ground cover in the Colorado room is a little bit lighter, a little bit yellower than the grass and ground cover in the other rooms, and that was done on purpose to give it a more western look. If we come over here, the top wall here in the hallway room is now complete. In the last video, these two pieces were here, but they were white, they weren't scenic, and I have since added the other pieces and scenic them, and it's starting to look pretty good. Obviously there's a gap here, and that'll work into the Colorado room eventually, but it's starting to look pretty good. If we come over here, this bottom panel here is new. I had a panel in here before, it wasn't scenic, and it didn't look right because it had bowed and buckled, and it wasn't looking consistent. So I removed it and put a new piece in, and as you can see, I'm still doing a little color work here to make it blend in and look nice. So eventually this won't look so weird, it'll look like the rest of the wall does. So still got a little work to do there. Into the Carolina room, you can see I've done a lot of scenery work here as well. It's starting to look pretty good over here, pretty mature scenery. Wraps around that way, and you can see I've still got some work to do back here, but it's coming along nicely. Now, one nice thing about this section right here is that within a few feet, you can see the entire process of scenery taking place. It starts off with nothing, like you have here. Then I put the cardboard lattice in place, which is the underlying structure for the mountains and hills. Then on top of that, I put the yellow hard shell, which is made of polyurethane foam and fiberglass window screen. Then I glue the rocks on, and these rocks are cast in latex molds using plastic casting resin and the polyurethane foam. And then after that, I prime the rocks with a coat of Artist Gesso, which is like a thick white primer paint that you can get at art stores. After that, I put a black wash on the rocks to darken them down, make them look a little more realistic. And then after that, you start putting ground cover down to make it look completely realistic and finished. And then finally you put in trees, and it looks like that. Now obviously none of this is done yet. Even over here I'm still going to add animals and branches and all sorts of stuff in the ground and add more trees. But you can kind of see the whole process from beginning to end in this section, which I think is pretty cool. Over here, this stone wall is just in place temporarily. It's not secured in, it's just there for the time being. Eventually it's going to be replaced by a rock wall that'll come out here and then meet this wall material. Now, I usually like to use these pre-made wall pieces. I buy them from Scenic Express, and they're a little costly, but they're worth it because they're very consistent, and that makes them very easy to work with. They have a set thickness, a set width, and a set height, and so that lends itself to easy modeling when it comes to building a wall. These wall pieces, on the other hand, are very inconsistent because I have to make them myself with plastic casting resin. And while they look nice, the plastic casting resin will sometimes pool up in certain areas of the wall mold, and you'll end up with a piece that's thicker in one spot, thinner in others, and that makes the piece a little bit wavy and inconsistent. And so I've had to work very hard to make this look nice. Now, it does look nice, but it was a big pain in the butt. But the reason I had to do it was because I could not use the pre-made wall pieces here. The pre-made wall pieces are too thick, and there's not a lot of space on this pass here, and if I used the pre-made wall pieces, the trains would rub up against the wall. So I had to use something thinner, and that meant I had to make them myself, so that's why I used the custom-made wall pieces here. And then that'll come over here, and like I said, it'll transition to a rock wall. I can't have it transition to this type of wall because it won't match up. It'll just look awkward. And I don't want to run this wall material all the way over here because it's going to be hard to work with over here with the portal being over here and the track up here and gaps and stuff like that. So I want to have a different material over here. So I'm probably going to take this wall material out maybe another 6 inches, and then it'll transition to a rock wall going all the way to the tunnel portal. The final thing that I wanted to show you is on this bridge that's in the hallway room. This is a drop bridge. It raises up when you need to get by, and then it lowers back down to let the trains go by. And I rewired it a few days ago. Previously, when I first built the bridge, the power wires came through this little hole here, and then were just soldered onto the rails on the bridge. And that worked fine from a technical standpoint. The problem was that sometimes when you wanted to lower the bridge, the wires would kink up and interfere with the closing of the bridge. And that bugged me for a long time, and I finally did something about it a few days ago. I rewired it so that now the power for the bridge goes through the actual hinges, because the hinges are made of metal and will conduct electricity. And so right here is the common, over here is the hot, goes through the hinge. On the other side, it's soldered on there, and these wires go down to the tracks on the bridge. And it works perfectly. And unlike before, there are now no wires to get in the way of opening and closing the bridge. It's much more idiot-proof than it used to be, and I like that. Okay, so that about wraps it up for this blog episode. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you in December. One of the streets is going to go right there, just to the right of where that yellow foam is.